Again, welcome. We're going to cover some things that we didn't get to last week, and we thought they were really important because it kind of changes your views on how you deal with credit, how you deal with money, like interest and things like that. So, fire away, Brad.
Yeah, so as we get started, if you have any questions that come up, fire them in live and we will answer them. Just put them in the comments. We'll answer as we go and keep the conversation going. But one of the first questions that came up for some of the folks we were talking with was balances and paying minimums. And there's a misconception, at best, right? A misconception that, and it's a widely held belief, and there are a lot of people who actually teach this, that you should never carry balances on your credit cards. And that's bad. That's actually really, really bad, because if you think about it, the very nature of this game is showing that you know how to actually effectively manage other people's money. And so if you're continually running and having a zero balance report, you're in a position where actual components of the FICO algorithm cannot score you and manage and measure your risk. And so you actually end up hurting yourself. You limit yourself on what your true fundability is by not having a balance report. Now, you don't want to have a big balance report. And so, without using any names, the instruction we were given is that when it comes to revolving accounts, less is better than more, but some is better than none. And it's one of the things that Merrill teaches, and I think it's brilliant.
I'm the name dropper in the family.
Yeah, he's the guy that gets us in trouble. What Merrill has taught, as long as I've known him, is that interest is the thank you that you pay creditors and lenders for giving you the credit, for letting you use their money,
for believing in you,
and for believing in you.
Yeah.
And so zero balances are a no-go, but you also got to be really careful that you're not running up big balances also. And so when you're working with us, we teach you exactly how to find out the timing of things so that you're not accidentally having a balance that reports over 50%, and all of a sudden you watch your scores drop 40 points. So those are the things you need to be aware of, though. But keep in mind, you got to have a little bit of a balance, because if you don't, you actually end up hurting yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, the other feature of carrying balances, besides letting them know that you know how to manage that once you establish a relationship with them, you're paying balances or you're paying your debts faithfully. Think of your credit. I always say it, your credit is your single greatest financial asset. Most of us, however, keep our credit over on the profit and loss. Think of your financials, right? You give to a bank or whatever. There's a profit and loss statement, your income and expenses, and then you've got your assets, your balance sheet. You want to treat most of us treat credit as though it belongs on our P&L, right? You treat it like, oh, interest is costing us too much money. I'm paying interest. That's a bad thing. I don't want to do interest. I don't want to pay interest. But when you end up knowing how to optimize your credit profile, and you know how to leverage your financial reputation that's on a credit report and credit profile, you want it to be on your balance sheet. You want it to be on that statement that says, I know how to manage assets. Now here's a perfect example. Let's say you had $1 million in gold bullion. Would you spend money protecting that asset? Would you buy security? Or would you buy, would you have paid to put it into a locker, right? You would spend money to protect that asset. Well, that's exactly what interest is. We want to spend a little bit intelligent money called interest. We want you to spend that money protecting and building that asset. Does that make sense? So do not put it on the P&L. Oh, I got to protect my interest. I'm spending too much money on interest. That's why these zero balances are not going to create the same kind of influence with future lenders and underwriters, because you're not managing anything. We don't want to get you in debt, but we do want strategic debt that is going to create this message to lenders that you not only know how to manage it, but you're investing in your asset we call your credit profile.
I like it. I like it. I like it. So Krista
has joined us.
Advisor, Team 1, Team Lead.
Hello.
Hey, Krista.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Why don't you start it off about authorized users? What's your thoughts?
Authorized user cards. So I think a lot of people out there are under the impression that authorized user cards are great for building credit, especially if they've been through a bankruptcy, if they've got some serious derogatory accounts, or don't have much credit history. They think that being an authorized user on their parent's card, on their spouse's card, whoever it might be, they think that's a great way to develop credit. But the way that FICO looks at authorized user cards and the way that underwriters and banks look at those cards is pretty insignificant in comparison to an individual user card. So they actually really can only hurt you, because if the main user on the card charges up the card, maxes it out, or if they don't make their payment, that's going to negatively impact you and impact your score.
FICO actually said that it doesn't benefit you anything, but if they go late because you're associated with it, it's guilt by association, and it will tank your score. Even though you don't get positive points, it will gut you if they do negative points.
Right. And even if you and that other person are paying everything off responsibly, you're still only getting a smaller amount of points. You're not getting what you could be getting if you had a strong card and you're the individual user on that account.
Yeah. Now, to add just a little bit more to that, as you look at how the authorized user lands, there's going to be a lot of information out there that is terrible misinformation. I actually watched a video probably a month and a half ago about a guy who his secret to getting your credit score to jump 50 or 60 points in 30 days was getting an authorized user card. Now, is that possible? Yeah.
Yeah, but points versus...
But watch last week's video we did live, because your points are your scoreboard, right? Your points aren't your approval. It's not your profile. So if your goal is, I want to get that first credit card in my hands, an authorized user, a bunch of authorized user cards can help you. Here's the downfall. At some point, when you want to have, say, a home loan, or if you work with us and come in and you want business lines of credit, you're done. Because you've got mom's authorized user card on your profile that's 20 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and then you've got your $300, $1,000, $5,000 card that you just got through that approval, and then you go to a real underwriter, and they look at that profile and they go, so the Amex isn't yours, the Chase isn't yours, the Wells Fargo isn't yours, the Discover isn't yours.
Credit union, the local credit union for $1,000, that is yours. That's
yours. So they completely discount all of the other trade lines because they're not your reputation. Even if it's stellar, it's not your reputation. So what happens? You get in and you have these authorized users, there's going to be a point in time when you want them off your profile. And when you do that, you will watch your profile tank. Now, could you leave them on there forever? Theoretically, yes, but
you're not going to be fundable.
You're not going to be fundable, right? And
Keep them.
But now, let me just qualify this real quick if I can. If you don't want to go out and get approved for home loans, or if you don't want to get business lines of credit like our main constituency of clients, our main focus, they come in and that is what they want. If that's not your game, if you're just about, I want to have a car, I want to have a few credit cards, I want to go to Europe on points, cool. You can have that profile and it can sit there forever. It's not going to hurt you. But if you want to be an actual leverage borrower, balked on that. You don't want those on your profile. That's the reality.
And here's the thing. While we each speak, we're all shaking our heads, and we are shaming and making fun of people who have done this. And the intention is not to make fun of you if you're in that situation, or you've listened to other people online, or gone to Credit Karma, and received information from other sources. That's not our point. The point is that people come into us all the time. We have hundreds and hundreds of clients who came in who are barely keeping their heads above water when it comes to believing that they're fundable. I got an 810 credit score. I got a 760 credit score. And like we said last week, you've been what's the English word for it? Engañado. That's Spanish. You have been deceived that your score is more important than your fundability, than your profile. And that's what, as Brad said, that's what the authorized user will allow you to do. You will raise your score. Score in that case is meaningless when it comes to your fundability. So we're not making fun of you if you believe somebody else. Just know that we have kind of a steep hill to climb to balance out your score that's based on authorized user cards when you want to be fundable. You want to get a mortgage. You want to get business lines of credit. We have got to switch this so that your profile, you're going to show that you've been responsible. You'll say, hey, I've got 5 years worth of credit, and it's 5 years, 10 years worth of somebody else's credit. You need a minimum of 24 months of your own credit to get anything sizable when it comes to business lines of credit, or a significant loan that you're not buying FHA where the government's doing all the heavy lifting for you. If you want something that's going to be a powerful profile, you've got to build your credit profile based on your results and your accounts. And then we have an algorithm that will slowly diminish the contribution of those authorized user points, but we can't go close them all at the same time. And we're not telling you they're bad, so go close it. If your score is based on them, you got to keep them. But if you're with us, we're going to replace those points with individually based accounts that are where you're getting the juice for making all the payments, and we'll slowly lower or get rid of the authorized user accounts as we replace those points.
Yeah, I was going to say on that note, be careful if you have an authorized user card to not just run out and close it, because it absolutely could be contributing to the average age of your entire revolving accounts portfolio. And then if that card itself has surpassed 24 months of aging, then it certainly has received some level of FICO bonus points for having it surpass that aging threshold. So
yeah, that's
okay. Do you hear her? Okay, do you hear her? I don't want to. First of all, I'm glad you're here. You have so much to contribute, and genius. This is why she is AT1's Advisor T1's team lead. Sheer genius, and she's coaching and training her entire team. So if you guys are a part of AT1, Advisor T1, you have got the best of the best. So.
And if you're not, don't feel bad. Yeah. Everyone else is good too.
We'll have AT1's team lead here shortly. So I'm sorry, AT2's client.
Sorry, you guys are those redhead stepchildren.
Yeah, you guys. That isn't what I meant. I'm just celebrating the fact that we have geniuses as team leaders. You'll meet the other team leaders shortly.
Completely true. Geniuses, absolutely true. And you bring up a great point, Kristen, because I mean I could probably count 20 or 30 stories of people who heard a presentation where we talk about authorized users, and we usually put those on a closure schedule, but we do that strategically. Yeah. So we know exactly the contribution that particular trade line is bringing to your profile before we even touch it. And so when we have somebody who calls us upset because their score just dropped 30 points, 40 points, because you said close authorized users. Well, we didn't say close yours. So be very careful, because we have seen, what was the worst recently? 3-month-old, and they lost 30 points?
Yeah.
Something like that?
It was.
So a 3-month-old account, 30-point drop. And keep in mind that 30 points is tough to gain back, but it's also part of their fundability overall. So score, it does matter, but don't close them unless you talk to us. We can give you some real insight on that.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to go back. We had talked about not making minimum payments. Okay. One of the things we learned at FICO, and by the way, we're re-announcing it. I'm so happy that you'll hear it every single time we talk, but in April, we're going back to FICO. So we're going back for even more of the juice. And FICO, their contact, because every organization has a specified contact, they've already asked us who we want to meet with and kind of what the subject matter is, because we get consultations while we're back there, just like we did last time. We're already looking for the business liquid credit score to be able to talk about business credit underwriting, etc. So we're really excited about FICO. The last time we went, one of the things that they told us, and one of the things that we intuited, so we wanted further clarification in one of our 100 questions, was what is the relationship between making minimum payments? So the message you send when you make more than 2 or 3, that's our intuition. They didn't tell us the exact number that they're counting. 2 to 3 minimum payments, the message you send is this is all I can afford, and so they withdraw credit profile points because you're on subsistence mode. Does that make sense? I just air quoted subsistence. Yeah. Ta-da! Do not make. Now, here's the other thing. Do not make the same payment, even if it's above and beyond a subsistence, right? You don't. Let's say your minimum payment is $79, right? You're carrying a balance of a couple of grand, but you can't draw down fast enough. You can't get to that perfect balance that we will calculate for you. Every single account has a perfect balance to carry. Some it'll be $17, some it'll be $90. I mean, every account has a perfect balance, and we will help you understand how that works. But the bottom line is that if it's 79 is the minimum, make 85, then make 92, then make 106. You don't want it to always be 82, 82, 82, or 85, because the message is that's all you can afford, and FICO will pull the points back. Okay, the fundability drops when you send the message, this is all I can afford. So vary the amount, like you're just, hey, I'm throwing some extra cash at my account, even though it's not $200 and $300 and $500 at a time. Do not make it the minimum payment, and do not make it the non-minimum payment, but make it the same. What is it? Change it up. Make it different every time. And if you can afford 151 time and then back down to 85 on that $79 minimum, do it. Because the algorithm is looking for a pattern, and we do not want to give them a pattern and they'll give us the points back or let us maintain the points.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to add to that, one last piece, why do we spend so much time talking about these little components of what seem to be maybe insignificant? Yeah. You know, oh, well, I'm paying my minimums, that should be good enough. We know people personally who have been denied. And the reason for the denial is you've been making minimum payments.
But guys, that's one of the 40 characteristics they measure. One of them is what are the payments that you're making, and they will look for minimum payments. You don't have to believe us, but just try it out yourself.
No. FICO's all about predictive analytics. They want to be able to predict exactly what this consumer is like, what is their behavior, and if you're doing the same behavior over and over, whether that's good or bad, they're going to note that and reflect that in your score. So yeah, that's the idea behind changing up the balance, or changing up how much you're paying beyond just the minimum.
Yeah, absolutely. And now, the next big topic.
Okay.
We'll bring it full circle for you, Merrill. Credit Karma. So, I love their commercials.
No,
I think they're great.
Deceptive and misleading.
They're misleading as can be. Like, you will never ever walk into a house with a realtor and check your Credit Karma score, and that realtor will say, "You got it.
This house is yours.
It's yours." That's complete horse
malarkey.
Thank you. It's garbage.
It's
British. I said it. I said it under my breath.
Yeah.
Have somebody dump something else in.
Okay, and here's the thing. We laugh about Credit Karma because it's the elephant in the room, right? Everybody compares their credit scores from Credit Karma. Credit Karma uses a FACO score. It uses the Vantage score, which is the sorry, not sorry. Isn't that
sorry.
That's what millennials say, right?
Sorry, not sorry.
They are Vantage score goes from, they basically started from a D- to an A+, right? It went from 990 to 550. And then they couldn't get any traction. It's developed by the 3 credit bureaus to compete against my FICO. Now, my FICO has been doing this for literally 70 years, and there's no chance in hell that they're going to trump it. So they started out on this 990 to 550 and wanted to make it like grades, A through D.
Very
doing
an AT1 for you, by the way.
Yeah.
And the problem is that if they couldn't get any traction, so just last spring, they revamped their whole score to go from the 350 to the 850, which is exactly FICO's measurement. So if you can't beat them, join them, at least on how they measure it, right? So now your Vantage score and your FICO score would have similar score valuations, but that's where the deceptive part is because Vantage score isn't used by lenders. You guys, you gotta go to where, you gotta go find out what your score is that the lender is going to use, right? Now, if you're working with us, we're going to develop a profile where the score is meaningful. But if you've got an 810 credit score and it's based on a credit union and your Home Depot card, I always use that example, you're not going to get funded for a mortgage or probably not even a car. The idea is you have to use the score that the lenders are using. So now back to Credit Karma. Credit Karma is valued, God bless them, love the valuation, $2 billion on not telling the truth. Okay? They are promulgating all of the stories, the misconceptions, and the credit myths that your score matters. Like you walk in and like, oh, Credit Karma says that I can afford this house or that I can qualify for this house, and everybody's celebrating and lead you to believe that that's going to work, that it's going to mean anything, it's going to matter. You're going to go to your mortgage broker, and that mortgage broker goes, Credit Karma, I'm pulling FICO scores. I'm pulling FICO scores 5, 4, and 2. If you're our client, you're going to know what all of that means. So, Credit Karma, bless their hearts, love them. We're going to exceed that valuation here soon. But I'm telling you, you've got to ask. That Brad taught me this years ago. One of the most brilliant things I've lived from every day of my life. The intelligence of your questions beget the intelligence of the answers. If you do not ask smart questions, you will not get smart answers. And the better your questions, the more you know, the better informed you will be. So you have to ask the right questions of your credit profile. You have to ask the right questions of the source of where you're pulling your credit reports, like your monitoring service. I can list dozens and dozens of online services that give out FACO scores, and you think you're informed. And guys, you're not. FACO scores pull 10, maybe 15 criteria. They measure 10 to 15 of the big criteria, right? Utilization. Everybody measures utilization. But they don't measure the subtleties of your authorized users. They don't measure the subtleties that's going to make you truly fundable in the eyes of an underwriter. So, Credit Karma, we don't disrespect their power of influence. What we would call them out on a head-to-head, put us on, what is it, Dateline or whatever, go let's talk shop. We call you out, Credit Karma, into a debate.
Thunderdome.
Yeah, Thunderdome. Credit Thunderdome, right? we would take on any one of your people and ask the questions that are salient to, and do that publicly in a live. We'll do it a Facebook Live, but you do not get to straight up deceive clients, your people who are paying you good money, to tell them something that is not going to get them funded. You don't get to anymore. We won't let you. So David and Goliath, whatever you want to call it, we've officially issued our challenge.
Apparently the gauntlet is...
We've been thrown. We throw the gauntlet.
Now, I will say this, because I agree with everything Marilyn said, obviously. We come from the same camp on this one. But Credit Karma has done a great job of creating awareness, right? And there's more of a social awareness about credit, which has long been kind of the secret, just unknown, uncertain thing that we've all dealt from, that space. So there's a great awareness there. It's just that it's so misleading. Right? I mean, 90% of lenders use FICO. 90%. You're not going to walk in and get a mortgage off of anything other than a FICO score. And Meryl mentioned exactly what versions of FICO that's going to be. Like if you're lost in the weeds thinking you're going to get it, you can walk in and your scores can be substantially different. We've seen as much as 100 points. It's not uncommon to see 30 to 40 point differences where people walk in thinking they're going to get approved because they looked at Credit Karma, and then they pull a FICO score and they're not approved. Or they're approved at a much lower rate, where all of a sudden the interest
is lower limits. Yeah, we'll approve you for a $20,000 car, not a $40,000 car that you're shopping for.
Yeah, or I can get you into this home loan, but you're not going to get it at 4.3% or 3.9%. It's going to be 5.6%. Yeah. The cost of that is staggering. It's just not right.
Yeah. And while I can be an arrogant ass about what we know or how we portray this, I just want social responsibility. If you have influence, us or anybody, if you have this much influence, then tell the truth. Okay? Just tell the truth so that people can count on it. That's what you deserve. To be in business, you got to have social responsibility, and that comes from. There's no harm, no foul in. Why don't you use FICO then? Abandon ship because I'm going to say Credit Karma is the largest single user of VantageScore because nobody else of any worth. Sorry, consortium of 3 credit bureaus who've dominated this market for way too long. FICO is the balance of power that says we're going to use the data and we're going to score it, but we're not going to be a part of the 3 credit bureau triumvirate. Anyway, just be socially responsible, teach the truth, allow access to the truth, and we'll be your greatest champions because it is social awareness. It is creating an awareness, and we don't want to be the only voices out here, but so far we are. So the challenge has been issued.
Yep. Anything else from the gallery?
Yeah.
Any questions, comments, thoughts?
We have a live studio audience, so anyway.
Well, those are all the questions I had from last week.
You're not going to get anything, but you're not going to get anything but the damn truth here.
Yeah, count on the raw truth with Credit Sense.
Yeah, including expletives.
They have.
A little unfiltered.
Yep. Okay. So anyway, thanks guys for joining us. Those of you who did, if you enjoyed this, give us a look. Come check it out on Facebook, YouTube.
Share it to people who need to know. Your fellow Credit Karma users.
I will definitely hashtag Credit Karma. Now, and also, if you've got questions, let us know.
Yeah.
Ask us questions under the comments in the video when you watch it, or shoot us an email. info@creditsense.com. We can answer any questions you have, and we're happy to.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, be well. We'll see you next week. It's going to be a different day next week.
Oh yeah, next week will be a Tuesday.
Woo! We're doing Tuesdays. So,
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
Tuesday.
Tea sets.
Tuesday tea with the team.
There you go.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.